Now, I know we're in the era of three-pointers and highlight reels, but let me take you on a trip down memory lane to a time when the NBA was ruled by a man who was as cold as ice, both on and off the court. I'm not talking about your flashy crossovers or jaw-dropping dunks. Nah, I'm talking about a player who could dismantle you with a single glance and then proceed to school you with his silky smooth skills. Ladies and gentlemen, we're diving into the world of NBA legends who had one common fear: Larry Legend Bird. I get it. The NBA today is all about hashtags and social media fame. But back in the day, Larry Legend was a force to be reckoned with. Whether you were a high-flying Dominique Wilkins, a smooth operator like Dr. J, a coach trying to outsmart him like Doug Collins or Chuck Daly, or just someone repping his home state of Indiana, Larry Bird spared no one. And let's not forget, it didn't matter if you were a fellow white guy. He had no mercy. Now, I might sound like an old-timer reminiscing about the good old days, but let me tell you, the trash talk in today's NBA is nothing compared to the ocean that Larry Bird used to swim in. Sure, we've got a few players trying to keep the flame alive, but it's a far cry from the verbal onslaught that Bird unleashed daily. So stick around, because today we're exploring the legends and players who found themselves on the wrong end of Larry Bird's ruthless banter. This isn't just about buckets and crossovers. This is about the verbal beatdowns that defined an era. Magic Johnson once said, "When I played, Larry Bird was the only one I feared." A lot of black guys always ask me, did Larry Bird really play that good? I said Larry Bird is so good, it's frightening. Now, don't let the nickname fool you. Larry was anything but your average guy from French Lick. His passing, unreal. His shooting, straight up deadly. And defensively, he had the sixth sense. A basketball IQ that left opponents scratching their heads. Let's talk about something they call white man's disease. Yeah, that's what they called it back then. It is a supposed inability of a white guy to jump high. But Larry didn't need to. The man defied gravity in his own way, soaring to the top of the basketball elite despite many doubters. Magic Johnson.
Larry, you talk about us meeting 30 years ago. And now we played in front of probably 15, 16,000. Now the final.
Now, rewind to the 1980s. An era when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson took over the league. These two were the driving force behind a league that was about to go global. They had quite an interesting rivalry. Back in their college days, they weren't exactly exchanging friendship bracelets. They were rivals, two alpha dogs vying for basketball supremacy. Fast forward to the pros, and their rivalry didn't just simmer down. It turned into one of the most iconic feuds in NBA history. In 2009, Larry Bird opened up on this Cold War of basketball legends. He straight up said, "I didn't shake hands when we lost to the Lakers. I never shook hands. When the Lakers and Celtics played, we didn't shake hands. When I first got to play against Magic, there was a hate factor there. It was more than just dislike. Over the years, something remarkable happened. The hate started to fade, and the respect began to bloom. Magic and Bird went from giving each other the cold shoulder to warming up to a bromance. Once sworn enemies, they became the dynamic duo of friendship. They spoke of mutual respect, acknowledging that the other brought out the best in them, and the result, the most decorated and impactful resume in NBA history. Michael Jordan. We all know Jordan struck fear into the hearts of every opponent he faced. But let's turn back the pages to a moment when Larry Bird, not MJ, was the one dishing out the intimidation. So there's this story from Curry Kirkpatrick. The ball had to be picked up by Larry Bird, and Michael went up a few feet away and held out his hands. And Bird took the ball and fired it back down the court over Jordan's head, as if to say, "You're not only not getting this ball, I don't give a who you are." Now, let that sink in. MJ, the guy who would go on to become the face of the league, got a reality check from Larry Bird. It's not just about skill, it's about attitude. And Bird had it in spades. He made it crystal clear that in his house, on his court, MJ wasn't going to stroll in and take over. Later in his career, Jordan said, "Larry Bird is the greatest trash talker and mind game player of all time. He taught me everything I know about getting in folks' heads." Just let that marinate for a second. Even MJ, to some, the GOAT, took lessons from Larry Legend in the art of mental warfare. And here's the kicker. During an interview with Vanity Fair back in '98, Jordan straight up confessed that despite his godlike status on the court, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were the guys that made him feel a bit, well, intimidated. John Sally. John Sally, a former NBA player himself, also couldn't help but praise Bird's trash-talking skills. When asked about the best trash talker he's ever played against, Sally didn't hesitate for a second. He said, "Larry's the blackest white dude I've ever met." That's one heck of a statement. Now, remember Leo Routins? I didn't think so. He was an opponent who faced Larry Bird on the court. Leo once said, "I say this in the utmost complimentary way. Larry was a prick." Reggie Miller. In his book, I Love Being the Enemy, Reggie speaks about an encounter with Larry Bird that you won't forget. Late in the game, tensions were high, and Reggie Miller, the young gun trying to make a name for himself, decided to mess with Larry Bird's concentration at the free throw line. Now, messing with Larry Bird, that takes some guts. Reggie does his thing, trying to throw Bird off his game and disrupt his focus. But Bird doesn't just brush it off. He stares Reggie down, steps up to the free throw line, and says to him, "Rook, I'm the best shooter in the league, understand? And you up here trying to tell me something?" He then buries the first free throw like it's nothing. But he's not done. Larry, with that icy stare still locked on Reggie, sinks the second free throw without breaking a sweat. Three-point contest. During the 1988 three-point contest, Bird coldly walked into the locker room. He then looks his fellow contestants dead in the eye and straight up asks, "Who's planning to come in second?" I mean, who has the audacity to throw shade like that in a room full of elite marksmen? Larry freaking Bird. That's who. And here's the kicker. He didn't just talk, he walked the walk. Bird steps onto that court and does exactly what he said he was going to do. And it's not just about the swagger. It's about the ability to turn words into action. LFO said it best. The great Larry Bird, jersey number 33. But let's get real. Larry Legend was more than just a catchy lyric. He was the face of the NBA, an all-time great whose greatness transcends even the turn of the millennium. Atlanta Hawks. Remember Bird's legendary game against the Hawks when he dropped 60? Well, Doc Rivers remembers it really well. Bird gets in the zone and starts calling his shots like he's Babe Ruth, pointing to the outfield. Doc Rivers opens up, saying,
"Bird got in the zone and he started calling the shots. He started saying off the glass. That was the one game I think he tortured Dominique. He tortured all of us. He was calling shots off the glass. Who's next? Where you want this one from?" And he just made one after another. When he got to the 55th point, you knew it was something special.
Chuck Daly and Dennis Rodman. Now, Bird wasn't scared of anyone on the court, not even the wild and unpredictable Dennis Rodman. Rodman recalls a game where Bird dropped 4 straight buckets on him. Larry then strolls over to the Pistons head coach, Chuck Daly, and says, "Who's guarding me, Chuck? Does anyone guard me? You better get someone on me, or I'm gonna go for 60. But that's not the end of the story. The next possession, Bird keeps the trash talk flowing. Rodman is all over him, trying to deny the ball. And what's Larry yelling at his teammates? "I'm open. Hurry up before they notice nobody is guarding me." And just when you think it couldn't get better, Bird knocks down another jumper on Rodman. And again, he strolls over to Chuck Daly, saying, "Coach, you better get this guy out and send in somebody who's going to D me up, because it's too easy when I'm wide open like this." Sean Kemp. Now, Larry was at the point in his career where people were whispering about his age and aching back. Sean Kemp then decides to test the waters, thinking maybe Larry isn't what he used to be. Kemp hits a couple of shots and talks a bit of trash, probably thinking he's got the upper hand. But Larry had something else in mind. Kemp said, "Larry taught me a lesson. People criticize Larry. Larry's getting old, his back is in pain, so I go out. I hit a couple of shots on him. I was like, man, said a couple of words to him. Next thing you know, he is shooting threes in my face. He's talking to me. He ended up with like 47 points. He taught me a lesson that regardless of who you are, how good you are, you have to bring it every night. You got to get your respect that way." From Indiana State standout to a 3-point NBA champion, Bird left an indelible mark on the game. Now, if you missed part 1, hit play on that video right now to catch up on the jaw-dropping stories of legends and players who found themselves on the wrong end of Larry Legend's Trash Talk Masterclass. Keep ballin', stay legendary, and I'll catch you on the next one. Chill.